Hello everybody. I hope that you're well. Welcome back to my mini series on the energy centers within the human design charts. If you haven't watched the videos before, please do. I think there's already at least another 5 or 6 videos before this one. I've started at the head and I'm literally working around the body, and there are 9 centers altogether. If you watch the head and the throat in particular, I also talk about what it means to have a defined center versus an undefined and open. So please do go back and watch those, because whilst I touched on them today, I'll do it very, very lightly. So today's video is all about the spleen center, the splenic center. So let me quickly share my screen so that I can hopefully show you. Here it is. So this is the splenic center on the human design body graph. If you haven't seen your body graph / chart, this is what your chart would look like. This diagram here is the body graph. If you go to effiemoss.com, you can generate your body graph / chart for free. And hopefully by the time you're watching this, there'll be links next to each of the keywords. So at least then it will, be able to access some of the little videos that I've created to help you understand what all these symbols mean, what all these numbers mean, what all the shapes mean, right? So in today's video, we're going to be talking about the splenic center, which is located just here on the body. And you'll see that it's fully colored in. That means that this center is defined when it's fully colored in. It doesn't matter, by the way, if it's pink or gray. That's just the branding of the chart. But if it's fully colored in with a color like this, then it's defined. If the center is white, so like the sacral center here, and it has colored numbers, it's undefined. And then if you have a center that's completely white with no colored numbers, then that's open. That just means that there's a little bit of extra sensitivity to these centers. The white centers in general means that you don't have consistent access to the energy that these centers provide, that you take on this energy from those around you, the environments that you're in, the people you surround yourself with, and you tend to amplify it. When the center is colored in and it's defined, then it means that you have consistent access to the energy that that center's wanting to provide you. So let's talk about the splenic center. So the splenic center is actually one of our oldest centers. And in the days of the hunters and gatherers, this would have been the center that would have provided an in the moment pulse, nudge, as I call it, to tell somebody that there is something to be aware of around them. And often that would be a fear-based awareness. So you're hunting, there's a lion nearby, your spleen's going to kick in and tell you, woo, danger, right? Danger, there's a lion there, it's going to chop you up. So just be careful, right? So that's it, that's the splenic center. And there is a lot of fear that lives in the splenic center. The splenic center is also a center for, like, not, I want to say health, but your immune system. If you've got a defined center, then normally that means that you have a very strong immune system. That's not to say if it's undefined, your immune system isn't strong, right? Because that's also you need to take other variables about your health into account. But for example, my splenic center is also where parts of your tummy are actually within this center as well. And mine's linked to my will. And I always notice, so I have a channel that connects the splenic center through to my will center, and both are defined. And I always notice that if I'm worried about resources, because that's the power of the will center, right? It's all about resources, it's about money. And as a projector, success is quite an important thing for me. So if I'm worrying about stuff there, and in particular about business, because that's what's expressed through my channel, all of this kind of stuff, it drives a tummy ache. I end up with a tummy ache. And the moment I saw my chart and I saw his connection, I was like, no, that's amazing. Just thought I'd share that with you. It was just amazing. Within the splenic center is quite an intuitive center, right? So it's all about living in the present. It's about our stability, our well-being. It's about being able to kind of determine what is and isn't right for us, right? But again, it's also it's a fear-based center. So 55% of the population have it defined versus 45% of the population have it undefined. I also have a splenic authority, meaning that it's the pulses from my spleen in the moments. The spleen's all about in the moment, right? Activity, decisions. If I ignore that in the moment decision, it will pass and I won't get it back. And it's kind of like I've missed the boat on this one, so I've got to kind of either wait for something new to come back round to respond to. It's an interesting game, especially when you've got a splenic authority, and you have this very like defined center that's very intuitive as well. One of my spidey senses is feeling, and I always liken it to like I will get an urge, a feeling about something. I can look at somebody and I'll have a feeling. I'm not being judgy. I just have this feeling, and it's like I said, it's a spidey sense. It's a knowing. I can walk into a room and get a sense of the room. Because I've got an open emotional center, so I can read the room, but I can also get this, like, use my spidey sense to kind of figure out what's going on quite quickly. I used to think it was a bit, people used to think it was a bit strange, but it's a superpower. I've decided it's a superpower. But when I take that and I marry it with this defined spleen, I get very strong intuitive pulses with my spleen when I'm in tune with who I am, when I'm not living up here in my head under pressure and trying to overthink things, when I'm letting things pass through my body, when I'm feeling things in the moment, when I'm centering myself, then my spleen can be very active. I've also noticed recently that the intuitive pulses that are coming from my spleen have started to change into tingly feelings that kind of pass through my body. So it's an interesting thing that sometimes we call human design an experiment, because we are all so unique and we all express things, in very different ways. I'm doing these videos and I'm giving you some very foundational principles about what these centers might mean. But you may experience, intuition in a different way, right? You might express it, fear in a different way. You might express your understanding of being present in the now in a different way to how I'm explaining it. It's all good. Okay, it's absolutely all good. There are no rules here. And which is why I'm observing for myself right now that, my splenic impulses seem to be morphing into these tingly feelings. And I don't know whether that's now meaning a stronger connection. So I'm clearing more and more things out, but I'm here for it. I'm just kind of embracing what's going on and kind of recognizing when those things happen, just to understand it more. I think as well with the splenic authority as well, it's a very interesting one, because as I said, a lot of the gates within it can also be grounded in fear. So this is where things like fear of past activities happening again, right? You're living in fear of the past, of things repeating themselves. That sometimes that there might be, I know, negative consequences to actions that you want to take, to things that you want to do, being fearful of that. As well, also losing people if you're aligned. Quick story, and this is, I think this speaks to this particular gate and this particular fear as the least optimal expression of the splenic gate, of the splenic center. When I started doing human design, I lost like 1,500 followers within like the first month of putting out content on it. And it would have been enough normally to kind of send me off my chair a little bit and think, oh gosh, I'm clearly not, people aren't ready for this. And judging what I'm doing and saying by this number that social media is telling me. But I recognized and hopefully brought in enough wisdom to kind of know, well, you know what, I'm talking about this, about human design, which is absolutely amazing, to a community I built and founded on different principles. So right now we're sifting and sorting. And I love that expression because you can use it for so many things. And it brought me in an inordinate amount of peace. But also recognizing that there were these fears that lived in my splenic center, and sort of going, actually, I choose not to have those. I know that's the least optimal expression of it, right? So what's the optimal expression? Well, the optimal expression is that, in the moment, my intuition is telling me this is the right path. These are the right things to do. My splenic center is making me aware of the fears. That it's making me aware, like contrast. It's making me aware you can't have day without night, right? But actually, I also trust how my spidey sense of feeling. I trust kind of my inner knowing. I can see the results coming in from other people I speak to and the messages I'm receiving and the conversations I'm having. So to hold everything else in much higher regard than this fear that keeps trying to come alive in my splenic center. And as I've explained before, I'm not all about kind of suppressing it, because I think when you suppress it, as I've said before, it's a bit like a pressure cooker, right? We're putting all the things we suppress in the pressure cooker, and at some point that pressure cooker lid is going to go, and everything else is just going to come out and knock you for six. So I kind of like went, all right, let's feel this. Let's feel this fear. Let's feel it's making me uncomfortable. Where's the resistance showing up? And it's almost like I start to thank it, like, thanks for showing me this. Thanks for making me aware of this fear. All right, what are we going to do about it? Okay. And because I'm all about action, can't help it. And part of me, I can hear other projectors around me going, oh, you're not all about action. Well, I kind of am. I'm a guide, but I also like to get things done. I can't help that. It's just how I'm built. That's part of my story and I'm good with it. So it's like, what are we going to do about it? How am I going to understand this? How am I going to give this more awareness? So I observe it using my emotions. I observe it using my defined head and my defined anja. I observe it through all of my life experiences that all of my undefined centers have given me. And I can then discern whether it's something I want to try on and keep, or whether I actually try it on and go, you know what? Thanks for making me aware, but I'm all good. Like, I understand this, right? I have a level of awareness around this. I have a level of understanding. I don't need to absorb this fear. I don't need to live it out. All right. So I've just tried it on, decided it's not for me, and then I've moved on. And that's, that is very much the Splenic Center, I think. Again, it's another really powerful center. And it kind of, I think it helps us with not just safety, it's an awareness center, right? So, and I like the example I've just given you around the awareness of fear. That's what it does. It enables us to create space between the thing that we're fearing, right? And actually the reality of it. And if you're able to step back in that moment and catch it as it's beginning to rise in you, you can slow it down, and then you can look in on it and you can observe it, right? And you can decide whether it's something that you want to keep or whether it's something you just want to allow to pass through you. And we all do that in different ways, right? So there aren't steps here, do these 5 things, do these 10 things. It's just being able to slow yourself down in the moment. And only you can do that because it's your life story. But I think if you can look at your human design body graph and just, and see whether it's defined or undefined, you'll then have this basic understanding whether you've got consistent access to this energy, this splenic energy that's very intuitive, or whether actually you're going to learn that through the experiences of the people around you and the environments around you, and also whether you're taking on other people's fears. So if you've got a defined center, the least optimal expression of this defined center is going to be fear-based things, like fear of things repeating itself, not having the courage to go ahead and do things, stopping yourself before you've even started is another one, because you've done it before and something told you it was bad. So actually you don't even want to try again, right? All these things show up as like a least optimal expression for the defined center. But then the undefined center as well, the least optimal expression of that can also be very similar things, taking on other people's fears and mistaking them for your own. Because you've observed it in somebody else, you've assumed that that's what's going to happen for you. And it's just being able to take a moment to take a step back and discern that and go, well, actually, I don't really feel resistance to this. I'm not really feeling my not self theme of frustration or bitterness or anger. Actually, I'm feeling quite peaceful, or I'm feeling, quite happy about this. And then you can kind of use the other parts of your body to kind of discern whether something's right for you or not. So this is the Splenic Center. And as I said, it's one of the oldest centers. If you have a defined Splenic Center, please let me know. I would so love to hear from you, because as somebody with a defined spleen, it would be quite interested to see how you observe it as well. And also, if you've got an undefined spleen, how does it, how do you work with it on a day-to-day? Like, do you notice it showing up? How do you approach your fears? Let me know. And also your intuition, right? Where are you tapping into your intuition? So there's another couple of videos following this one. One's on Satcor, one's on Root, the Root Center. And then once they're done, we've done all 9 centers. So I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everybody. Bye.